Great. Okay, well, folks, we can get started. I'm sure there'll be a few more folks trickling in over the coming minutes, but thank you everyone for joining this week's standing delegate call. Had one last week, but that was a makeup call from the one that was rescheduled during DevCon. So now we're back on our regular cadence from this week, and then starting again in 2 weeks from now will be the next call. Today, the agenda is pretty basic, but there's some big topics in here to cover. So the first one, which is a follow-up from last week, we have Alex G here, who's the founder of Matter Labs, who will go over and discuss the vision for the Elastic Chain. We touched on this slightly last week, and there was a bit of discussion around this in the delegate call last week, but today we'll get a lot more context, and there'll be an opportunity for Q&A as well, of course. Next, we'll go over the two open protocol upgrade, the zips that are up right now. They're the very first protocol upgrades that we are putting through governance, so that's really exciting. So not only will we just touch on those, but I'll also give a little bit of an overview of what the zip proposal process looks like, because it is slightly different than TPPs and gaps, and I think it'd be a good time to review that, just so everybody's aware of what's to come. And then there was one more item on here as well, which from Tecker to have a discussion on delegate incentives and rewards. So that's the agenda so far. If there are other ideas, feel free to drop them either in the chat here or write them on the forum as a response in the forum post as well. And we can try to get to those if there's time. But I will hand it over to Alex to start with the discussion on the Elastic Chain vision. Alex, do you have anything you want to share, or is it okay for me to share maybe the Slido instead?
Yes, please share the Slido. I think most people here have seen the Elastic Chain blog post and material. So it's not going to be a presentation. I want it to be the conversation. I'm really happy to be here and meet you guys. Some of them meet again, and most of you for the first time. And I hope to be frequent in these calls and really build a relationship and have a conversation that goes both ways. So want to make it really interactive. And I want to start with reminding us that ZKsync has a mission. And I think the mission is what defines ZKsync more than anything else, more than technology, more than any choices of design of what we're building, like any product things. Our mission is centered around the idea of freedom, because freedom drives innovation, progress, prosperity, creativity, which eventually it drives innovation, creativity, which leads to progress, which leads to prosperity. And this was the idea that inspired the creation of Bitcoin, inspired the creation of Ethereum. And I believe that increasing freedom is really the most important thing, one of the most impactful things you can be working on in today's world. And blockchains are the most transformative technology after internet that can increase freedom in the world. And those two ideas really led to the creation of ZKsync. I mean, you could just use Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they were not scalable. So ZKsync was born as a response to that. How can we scale something like Ethereum in a way that preserves freedom that Ethereum and Bitcoin brought to people, with full self-sovereignty over your assets, over your identity, openness, permissionlessness, no trust assumptions, no single points of failure? What is the way for us to bring it to everyone in the world? And the next idea which came to this is that you can actually use zero knowledge proofs, and that's the most powerful cryptographic primitive that can enable this scale. So those 3 points together led to the creation of ZKsync. And in the first, so ZKsync has just turned 6 years old. We found the very first commit in the ZKsync repository from November 18th, I think, like 2 weeks ago, exactly 6 years back. It's been a wild journey. The first couple of years were completely experimental because it was not clear that zero knowledge proofs will be evolving so fast as they did. In fact, it was completely open and like it was kind of in the air that they will be going through revolutionary transformation, like probably on a scale of 5 to 10 years, but no one could predict when the breakthrough really happened. And when we started, the maturity of zero knowledge proofs was not sufficient for building like real productive applications for scaling. You could do privacy stuff, which Zcash did, but not scaling. So like the first thing we built was the basically experimental ZK rollup for just payments because we could not do anything else. The second version of the protocol was the generalization of the scaling like of ZK rollup to all Ethereum smart contracts, the first ZK VM. And we had a fun battle on crypto Twitter about who was the first. Obviously, it was us. In summer this year, the protocol has made the transformation into like something what I believe is close to its final form to the end game, which is the elastic chain. And the idea of the elastic chain is that if blockchains are to bring the entire world of value on chain, just like the internet brought all of the information online, like basically everything is happening online one way or another. Even if something is private, it's probably still accessible on the internet with some private credentials. So if blockchains are going to do this for value, it cannot happen on a single chain because you have technical limitations, but you also have business and organizational and political limitations. And people will never agree on having like one single chain that is one size fits all for everything. And if the future is fundamentally multi-chain, then the most important question is how you connect them in a seamless way. And zero knowledge proofs is kind of the only way how you can do it without losing the security and decentralization of the underlying protocols, because you want to preserve verifiability, because the only way to keep the security is to make sure that every single user can actually check everything that is happening on this gigantic network. Like if Ethereum is your settlement layer and you have many rollups running there, then if you don't directly verify every single transaction on thousands of chains, which could be millions of transactions per second, personally as an end user, then you inherently rely on someone else. Then you start delegating, and once you start delegating, at first it will be some good corporations would come and say like we're not going to be evil, trust us, everything is going to be fine, and they look nice and they have nice track record. But eventually, for reasons that are against the will of the founders, potentially, they can take the evil turn because the bureaucracy eventually takes over as organizations grow. We see this with all the governments. We see it with the US government, like how far it is from the original ideas of the Constitution like 200 years ago. And we see it with all big enterprises. Things change. The same people are not in control, and you cannot really preserve this ability to not be evil unless you have systems that force you and make sure that you can't be evil. And ZK is is a technology that allows us to build the systems. So the idea of the elastic chain is that we build a network which anyone can join, anyone can build their own chain, plug into this network, they operate the chain in whatever way they want, but all of the transactions on all of the chains are verified on Ethereum through the ZK, and all of the chains are connected in such a seamless way that it basically feels like one giant internet of chains. So you can have an account on any of these chains, and you can connect to any application on any of the other chain and interact directly with it without any additional cost overhead, trust assumptions, or long delays. So it's pretty fast and seamless. So that's the whole idea. And yeah, like basically, let's go from here and take questions and have a conversation. So shall I just go through like, please take a moment to go and like the questions that resonate with you, so we can prioritize them and spend more time on the more popular ones.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan.
So, okay, let's start from the top. What are the top 5 short and midterm priorities for ZKsync in terms of achievements and measurable results? I'm writing a blog post, which I want to publish next week, about the roadmap of Matter Labs, and what I would suggest the roadmap for ZKsync should be. And obviously, ZKsync is now decentralized, so it's up to community to make the final call. But the I want to share it with you. Our mission for the next year is to make ZK rollups finally surpass on all capabilities optimistic rollups, and make the Elastic chain like a real thing, not a concept, but like actually working interconnected network of chains that is infinitely expandable. And the way, what this means is, first we make the ZK stack the absolute top choice for developers who are building on Ethereum. So it just has to be better on the 5 key dimensions, which are developer experience, user experience, security, performance, and interoperability. Developer experience is something that we had massive friction so far, because the ZKsync, ZK stack was not EVM equivalent, and some of the applications could not deploy. Some of them had to rewrite tests or deployment scripts, even though most contracts just work out of the box. It was not a smooth experience. Like, some of the tooling did not really work or had diminished capabilities. So our number 1 top priority for like what the team is working on right now, and what we will be shipping and offering for governance to approve and integrate into the live protocol, is EVM equivalence. And we made huge progress on this. We're very, very close to having the we have a live testnet with EVM equivalence. Multiple chains are building already from scratch on EVM equivalent version of the stack. And a huge upgrade which comes after that is going to be related to performance. Despite being EVM equivalent, ZK stack is going to be cheaper than, like, if you run it in the ZK rollup mode, it's going to be lower cost than all existing optimistic rollups, with something that we call ZKOS, which is a package of features which includes the new proof system, the new virtual machine, and the new sequencer, all working together with the goal of reaching something like 10,000 TPS by the end of this year at a negligible cost, like 0.00 something cent, like way below the current costs of the optimistic rollups. So like this developer experience and performance are the 2 top priorities for the technical team at Matter Labs. Sam? Oh, you just wanted to celebrate.
Yes.
Got it. So like that's developer, and that's number one priority for DevX and number one priority for performance, like lowering the costs, increasing the bandwidth, and having it all be an equivalent way. In addition to that, there is one important project we're working on for developer experience, which is full end-to-end Solidity to EVM compiler based on LLVM framework, which will, first of all, will bring, will like massively level up the maturity of the compiler stack of Ethereum, because right now the SolC compiler is not based on any compiler framework, and LLVM is the most robust, most mature, most developed framework for building compilers in the world. But SolC does not even have a formal specification. So like, this is something we want to contribute, like make it formal, make it a lot more efficient to compile into EVM bytecode and potentially into RISC-V or WASM or whatever more efficient version of the VM could be for Ethereum. And also add a native LLVM debugger, which will allow developers to debug their code from Visual Studio, like all normal programming languages, where you will be able to like pause, take your transaction from mainnet, fork mainnet locally, change your code, and then rerun it again and go step by step and inspect all variables and like just really see what's happening and being able to do it like really fast, because locally you will run it as in-memory node, which is very, very fast. I mean, like we're measuring thousands of TPS in this in-memory mode right now. So like those are the two top priorities: developer experience and performance. On the security, like the security aspect includes trust and decentralization alongside like proper security. So number one priority for us is to make sure that ZK stack reaches ERA reaches stage 1 rollup status, according to L2Bit rollup or Vitalik's rollup maturity framework, which is like a low-hanging fruit for us because everything is basically in place. We just need to finish one component called the priority queue or first inclusion mechanism for ZK stack, and then we can upgrade ERA, and it's going to be like very, very short path from the stage 2. Then next, after stage 1, we will have decentralized consensus with staking, with proof of stake, with the ability to stake your ZK to become a permissionless validator of ERA and on all the other ZK chains that opt into the using decentralized sequencer. Not necessarily with ZK, like they will be able to use their own tokens. But it's very important that we build something that is decentralized and not only runnable by a single sequencer, because otherwise we're kind of running into the like we cannot ensure that the elastic chain remains censorship resistant and resilient if not all the individual chains, or like a lot of individual chains participating in it, are decentralized on their own.
So,
and then,
Alex, so to kind of paraphrase or kind of summarize, we have a lot of a lot of stuff on the roadmap for ZKsync. But one of the things that you're kind of mentioning and focusing on is basically next year is ZK chain rollup year, where we want to be able to make ZK chain rollup deployment as easy and the best performant solution. And we want as many ZK chains to exist to bring to reality the elastic chain. Is that fair?
That's fair. So we want to make ZK rollup the best obvious choice for developers, not for ideological reasons, but because it's a better product. And then finally, we want to connect them.
Yeah.
And we know that the only way to connect them permissionlessly and like have every chain be able to participate in the interop network is through ZK. We know, for example, that Superchain won't be able to do this.
Yeah.
First of all,
I guess
the interop is.
Yeah, I guess that brings us to a second question here, which is maybe talk a little bit about why the
sure.
elastic chain is different than the super chain.
Let's differentiate. Like what Polygon is building, the egg layer is very similar to the ZK chain. In fact, like it's a kind of like an obvious idea if you understand zero knowledge proofs, that like how to combine them in a way that makes the that gives you the best properties of the interop that you want. We are just way ahead of them. I think like the major differentiator from the egg layer is the maturity of our interop solution and of the ZK stack overall. Like last time we checked, Polygon ZKVM could do like 5 transactions per second. I don't think much changed since then. So that's egg layer on the one hand. Optimism, Avalanche, Polkadot, Cosmos, all of the other chains depend on crypto economics. Some of them have native interop protocols like Cosmos, but they rely on honest majority of the stake, which is not much different from traditional bridges. If the majority of the validator or like of the stake is compromised, like this was the case when Luna collapsed, then you will have all of the protocols that depend on this one hub also collapse. So like this never really took off because despite being kind of a native protocol, it does not give you the native security properties and the native user experience. Well, user experience maybe in some cases, but like you cannot really connect one chain, like chain B to chain A and then chain C to chain B and still have this extension of trust beyond the original consensus of the originating token. So like long story short, what we're building is actually natively secure at protocol level, and it's going to be very usable. And to specifically compare it to what Optimism is building, the super chain requires every chain that participates in the interoperability network to trust every other chain or to run the full node of every other chain. So like the reason I'm saying you have to trust is because you have to force your users and your kind of everyone who's running your full node to also run the full nodes of all these other chains. And this really does not scale. They will probably have something like 5 chains throughout the entire next year that can participate. And it's going to be like the 5 biggest chains like Base, OP, Mainnet, couple of others. So like they cannot really open it to everyone. Whereas on the Elastic chain, it's going to be open to everyone. Build whatever, either a general purpose chain with your own community, like the ones that are currently building, and we have close to 24 chains now lined up to launch by Q1 next year, or even build a application specific thing and still have access to all of the users and all the liquidity from the entire Elastic ecosystem. Okay, let's go next. What is the vision for Era amongst other ZK chains? Era is going to serve. So right now, Era is the only ZK rollup across the ZK chains that are building on the Elastic chain, which means it's the only place that is fully Ethereum aligned from the Ethereum high church perspective, and it's the only place which can have applications that require ultimate security of a ZK rollup, some real world assets integrations, some bridges, and so on. So ERA is positioned to serve as the hub of governance and as a hub of interoperability. Like, for example, having native bridges from Circle for USDC or from other protocols that all of the other chains can use, and they don't have to integrate them natively in themselves, because they can just bridge through the native interop to ERA and from like and then in the same transaction basically bridge away, making the entire construction like very, very capital efficient for all the participants. So those are the primary functions of ERA that are currently being considered. Okay, what is the where can we find the list of ZK chains we should know about? I think the team is building something like the Elastic Chain Explorer, where they will all be visible. Rafa, maybe you can take this and come back with.
I'll take this one. Elby and I we'll talk to Grendel and the team, and we'll create a forum post with them.
Cool.
There's also a tweet coming next week that will highlight all of them. But yeah, we'll work on getting a full list.
Yeah. Shelby, not sure if we can close out a couple of the questions. So maybe we can see the other ones.
How do you imagine ZK chains leveraging interop? What do you imagine being the bulk of interop transactions? I think the main use case for crypto today is just payments and swaps, which covers probably 99% of everything that's happening. The interop is going to support very fast, very low cost transfers and swaps between chains from day one. So you will not even need to integrate them into individual protocols, because you can use intents, and the intent solver will use the backend underneath without the users having to worry about it. All the users will have to do is just to sign the intent in their applications and say, like, I want to swap this amount of this token on this chain against this token on that chain, and it will just magically happen. Okay, next. What types of token programs and token mechanics could help accelerate the Elastic Chain vision? That is, Rafa, I think you wanted to answer this.
I think Rafa just dropped out.
He dropped out.
Sorry,
there will be.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There will be, like, we have some ideas that we want to share about the programs. I think association had some more ideas. Like there was, I think it was part of the presentation that Rafa wanted to share.
Yes.
So we can just like skip this question and then he will share, and we can come back to discuss actual details.
Yeah, we've talked about a few of these things in the past, but yeah, we can move on for now and revisit later. This is more something that Rafa and I can speak to. So maybe we move on to questions that are more helpful for Alex to answer.
Cool. Upgrades for all of the chains in the Elastic Chain controlled by ZK Nation. Not individual chains, but if they want to participate in the interop, then the ZK Nation will approve the versions that those chains can use. So basically, like yes, they cannot upgrade on their own to something new. Like it's probably going to be, it needs to be built in a way where the ZK Nation cannot impose an upgrade on chains, because they might not be ready. Like you cannot coordinate and like force everyone to synchronously upgrade. But it should be something like you roll out a new version and then chains like gradually opt in into this new version and remain interoperable. But yes, ultimately ZK Nation will have the highest power on what version of the stack is suitable for the Elastic Chain for those who want to be part of the interoperability, which I assume will be most chains. Then what is the Elastic Chain? Is Era part of the Elastic Chain? We just answered that, so I think we can move on. How do you ensure continuous alignment between ZK-Gov and ZK Chains builders? I think that one of our values is to rely on math, cryptography, and open source code much more than on human coordination. So like just like Ethereum, we should be aiming at minimizing governance and maximizing freedom. So we should focus on what's like, if we focus on building the best ZK stack and the best distribution network that everyone else wants to join, then it's going to be like a natural alignment kind of through the token mechanisms, which I think we'll need to develop in a similar way of how other ecosystems are thinking about them. Like namely, like Superchain has a fee structure where the chains that participate have to pay 15% of profits or 3 or 2.5% of revenue, whichever is larger, for the right to participate in the Superchain. I think that we will have to offer something like this, and we need to think it through and elaborate and discuss and like come up with maybe some better structure, but like roughly it should be something like this. Like the chains that participate should be contributing to the common treasury of the ZK Nation DAO. And then ZK Nation DAO invests into making technology better, product better, and also invests in programs that increase the network effects of the entire Elastic Chain. Okay, what types of token programs and token mechanics? Okay, we'll discuss that. Beyond the 2,000 chains expected, what is the long-term vision for Elastic Chain ecosystem growth? Are there any specific verticals in focus? What I think will be like really big focus for the Elastic Chain is the developing markets and places where you can really make a tangible impact on freedom and in access to finance for people living there. Like you can think of Argentina, you can think of Southeast Asia. Like we are in conversations now with a bunch of projects and organizations who want to build their own chains, who understand the local specifics much better, who are like having some connections to local markets, like either they are running exchanges or they have some other things where they understand the local markets like really well. And I think we should focus on supporting them and helping them build these local ecosystems, which they will be able to offer internal token incentives to onboard more and more people in those regions and leverage their understanding of the local cultures. But they will all be interoperable in a much more tighter way than if they were just isolated rollups on Ethereum. Because Ethereum's like pan-Ethereum interop is probably still many years away.
Great, Alex. I think maybe just for the sake of time here, we might wrap it here. I think we've hit some of the major points and questions that folks had, and I thank you so much for being here and joining to present and lead this discussion. Reminder, or you mentioned earlier in the call, you're planning on posting or publishing a blog post regarding the Matter Labs vision and roadmap. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for that, and we'll be sure to share it with delegates as soon as that comes out. Rafa and I will also continue to try to kind of draw the bigger picture, the connection between governance and aligning with a technical vision and roadmap going forward as well. And yeah, of course, we have this lovely recording and artifact to reference, and we'll also try to add some links and relevant information in the notes as well from this call. So thank you, Alex, again. And thank you, everybody who participated and asked questions. We absolutely will post the recording. Gabe, I saw your question in the chat. I post it usually the day or two after the call is done. So we'll be sure to share this one as well in the next coming days.
Thank you all. It was my pleasure. Thanks,
Alex. Bye. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we were going to highlight or kind of go over the two open protocol upgrade proposals that are live at the moment. And also just to be clear as well, wanted to run over the proposal process for protocol upgrades as well, since these are the very first ones that we're putting through governance, and wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of what this process and timeline will look like for the approval of the protocol upgrades. So yeah, first, just to share my screen again here with the agenda. There are two open zips right now.
Can I take it from here, shall we?
You absolutely can, Alicia. I will share the links to these protocol to the proposals in the chat.
Cool. We can take it off screen share and we can just chat, and then everyone can see. We have some devs on the call, and so the link to the forum is in the chat, I think, as well, right? Cool. So I'm Alicia. I help support protocol governance stuff. I'm really excited that the first ZIP, which is the ZKsync improvement proposal, has gone on chain, and actually is open for voting. If you haven't voted and you're on this call, please take this opportunity to ask any questions that you have about ZIP. We are, 200 million away from quorum, and it would be great to, reach that as soon as possible. I'm conscious that it's the end of November, Thanksgiving week, going into December, and we're trying to have like a really productive couple of weeks with protocol upgrades. And so that's Zip 1, and then I'll hand it over to Zach in a second. I just want to do a short intro as well for Zip 2, which just went on chain yesterday. Wow, that was a long 24 hours. Okay, yesterday, and there's a 7-day vote delay before it opens for voting next week. And then we have Sam from Matter Labs here to talk about Zip 2. And so again, I'm going to hand it over to the devs so that they can give a quick overview of the proposals, and would invite you to ask any questions. And then also if there's anything on the forum, everyone is keeping an eye on that, so you can drop questions there. But Zach, thank you so much for joining, responsible for kind of leading the work on the protocol defense upgrade. Which I very unkindly, when delegates ask me about it, refer to it as a snooze fest, just because I feel like it is like quality of life for non-technical people is stuff that needs to happen. It's nothing like super riveting in terms of protocol upgrades, but it's really important. But maybe you can do a better job of selling it.
Yeah, I could definitely try to do my best. So yeah, what is protocol defense? So as you guys just heard through Alex's presentation, the first kind of time that code was committed for ZKsync was back in 2018. And so between then and now, there's been a lot of improvements in the ecosystem, namely to the Solidity compiler, as well as to the language itself. And so While that is making progress, we wanted to basically keep our code in the best form and shape possible. And that's kind of what protocol defense encapsulates. So the kind of like TLDR of the changes that were made was we moved it into better error processing, so that not only can we have a better time debugging, but users gain more insights rather than random strings that may or may not be indicative of what was going wrong, as well as enforcing stricter Solent rules for best practices and minor gas optimizations. And that is basically it. It's a lot of small changes that basically touch the breadth of our contracts.
Amazing. Okay, any questions? I just want to quickly check the chat on Zip 1. No. Okay, and if you do have any questions, like I said, feel free to drop them in the forum, and we'll move swiftly onto Zip 2, which is was put forward by Sam, who is on the security team at Meta Labs. Sam, can you tell us about this very exciting proposal?
Yeah, it's actually a fairly simple proposal. We're proposing to reduce the execution delay from the current 21 hours down to 3 hours. As most of you can figure out, this is definitely a benefit for finalization. The big reason that we're putting this proposal now and why we haven't made this change in the past is actually because we have ZK Nation and the governance in place. Before we had this, we were relying on ourselves to ensure that there isn't any sort of issues or anything that we need to address that we needed to do within that time period. But now that we have the Security Council in place with many great security experts on it, we believe that the 3-hour window gives us more than enough time for the Security Council to be able to see if there's an issue, investigate this issue, and decide if a soft freeze or other action needs to be taken to deal with this issue in a timely manner. We wanted it at 3 hours rather than a shorter period for two main reasons. One, because, as I said, we wanted to make sure that the Security Council has time so that they're not doing unnecessary freezes and they can truly evaluate whether this is something that needs to be done. And also, it's related to our proving time. Our proving times are all currently under 3 hours. But if we reduce the execution delay below this, we would run into the point where we're still waiting for the proving times, which are improving every day as we work on them.
Wonderful. Christoph?
Yeah, I do have a question about it. Because 3 hours, like coordinating on a decentralized Security Council in 3 hours, even though it consists of mostly professional organizations, and it requires just 3 out of 12. It's still a challenging task to coordinate on executing something. And at the very end of this proposal, if you can scroll to the very end, it says that the monitoring tools, monitoring systems, and it says that enhanced monitoring will be implemented to detect anomalies in real time, which suggests that these things are not in place right now. So like, I'm wondering, I understand, because we were like discussing about this on Twitter already. I understand that while it might not be a good idea to reveal all the details about the OPSEC here, but also, like, on the other hand, simply trusting that, trust me, bro, we have it covered and everything will be fine is also probably not a good practice. Could you provide some insights into why do you think that 3 hours is enough to coordinate on this? Because it seems like a strong attack vector at this point. And
So-
what about those tools? Like, are they in place or will they be implemented afterwards?
Yeah, so there's really two questions here. So related to the tools, Matter Labs does have monitoring in place. We've had this monitoring in place because, as you can imagine, even before governance existed, this is stuff we've needed to pay attention to. What isn't 100% in place now is expanding these monitoring tools to the rest of the Security Council, which is something that we are working on that Alicia probably wants to add a little bit on that part too.
Yeah, I can just quickly add that we are this week setting up monitoring to like a monitoring system to extend to all 12 members of the Security Council, and that we are planning to do a test run on Friday, and so voting opens on Monday, and then even prior, like after voting closes, the Security Council still basically has its review period, but our plan is to have kind of like the minimum level of monitoring required to meet the requirements of this proposal in place kind of when voting opens on Monday. And then with regard to the 3-hour kind of time window for coordination being high, I feel very confident in the ability of at least 4, but likely 8 out of the 12 Security Council members being able to respond within 60 minutes of being notified and to take action like within that 3-hour, like within a 3-hour window, just based on kind of like the actions that have been required of them so far, the rehearsals that we've had, the like legal contracts that are in place, the like number of signers that each entity has participating, and the rosters and like everything. I would say that very intentionally the ZKsync Security Council is made up predominantly of security experts who kind of like are in the practice of having these procedures in place. And yeah, I mean, I could be proven wrong, but I don't know. Maybe you can ask another question about how to prove my confidence in my ability to coordinate the Security Council.
Yeah, and to expand a little bit on that, as I've responded in the forums too, related to the expectations of different entities responding on the Security Council. As we built the Security Council, at least for the entities, it was clearly defined that these entities needed to build teams that are basically 24 hours monitoring, have people awake, ready to respond to this. And that was one of the requirements to be within that tier for it. So we have 4 of those members. And then the next tier is, I think, our SLA, which means that they have an hour to start investigating an issue. And honestly, most of the members that are outside of even the 15-minute response times are going to start way before that, because the teams that are within it aren't just going to sit on this. We intend to alert everyone on the council and get people start looking at it, even if they weren't staring at it at that moment.
So, like, I understand this, but 2 things. Like, one, you mentioned that this monitoring tooling is not extended to those Security Council members. So right now,
No, it is. It will be by Friday. It will be.
Okay, so by Friday, any of them would be able to figure out that, because like I'm looking,
Great.
first of all, I'm looking at the bottlenecks. So right now, as I understand, you are the bottleneck. Like if you don't notify them that something's happening, they will not react. So like this is the bottleneck. But I assume that by Friday or whatever the deadline is, it will be the case that this will be decentralized, and any of those Security Council members will be able, like, we can expect them to be actively monitoring for any dangerous thing happening. Like we can have this expectation of them. And also, like, it would be great if you could elaborate a bit on this, like, you know, to the extent that you feel comfortable, because right now it's kind of like we are voting based on you telling us, yes, we have it figured out. But I don't know exactly, like, if somebody asks me, okay, how do you know that this is working properly? I have to say, I trust Alicia, and Alicia trusts Samuel. And
unfortunately,
I would like to have at least a bit description of what are the actual security processes and guarantees in place, so that we are, you know, comfortable voting for this.
Yeah, I will say that, like, even and like just after we kind of confer with the Security Council, happy to disclose kind of the stacks from an ops perspective that is used. And we'll just quickly touch on the fact that something that you mentioned, which I think is a really good point, which is the goal, I would say probably realistically, like we're at end of November. So the next month is kind of maybe slower than usual. But definitely I would say in the next 3 to 6 months, the goal is for a majority of Security Council members to have independent monitoring systems set up and in place. We just have not got there right now because we are still going through kind of like procedure exercises and rehearsals and those sorts of things across different scenarios. But that's definitely the goal. And then with the stack, yeah, Sam, I don't know how to resolve this because even if I say like, I don't know if I can like name the platforms. I know that there are only like 2 platforms that everyone uses, so I don't know if it is an issue. But even if I say that, I don't know how to verify how someone could independently verify that it's like set up how I say it.
So I don't need to, like, first of all, you know, the reason why we need it is that if something happens, we know who to blame for it. And like, if you say that, like, if you say in the proposal that all those Security Council members are running their own monitoring systems, then if something happens, I can expect every single one of them actually monitoring this. So nobody has any excuse of why they didn't react on something, because I can expect them to be doing this. But right now, I don't have this guarantee.
Right.
So this is the thing that I want to know. I want to know that there are procedures in place, that it's not that Alicia is actually looking into the monitor and if she's sleeping, then nobody is going to react on something, because we don't know this at this place.
No, and from the very beginning, we've really designed this in a process, especially for the Security Council in general, that we want the collaborative effort of these very talented security and organizations and individuals that are part of our Security Council. So as Alicia said, as of right now, well, as I've said, Matter Labs has this because we've always had this monitoring. We think it's very good, but we know we're not perfect. So the base level is us sharing everything we have with everyone else on the Security Council, so they can implement it how they feel is the right way, whether they think everything we're doing is accurate, whether they think we're missing stuff. And as they come to these same conclusions, and once they come to what they think is the better approach, they're sharing that with everyone else on the Security Council too. So the hope is that through this, we get an even better monitoring solution than what we have in place right now. What's being implemented on Friday is really the transition from just Matter Labs having it to it being, hey, here's what Matter Labs has. It's now being alerted to everyone on the Security Council. Here's the things we're alerting on. Now let's start improving this. Let's have these discussions to make it even better.
Great. Are there any other questions that folks wanted to ask?
Maybe, Jimmy,
Sam,
I will add one more thing, because like, so I understand, and that's good. Like, basically, I'm not questioning anything, and I'm not criticizing anything. Simply because, like, right now, my question would be, what if Matter Labs tries to attack the protocol? And at this point, as Matter Labs is running this monitoring system, if Matter Labs is trying to attack the protocol, then basically those Security Council members will not do anything because they are not notified. That's why I want to make sure that they have this capability, because that's why we are trusting them.
So the solution for this is for the Security Council Foundation to run its own kind of like instance of Defender monitoring, so that it's completely independent, so that any one member of the Security Council can be hostile or removed or replaced, and the whole system doesn't collapse. So yeah, that's kind of this, in my mind, like the starting point, which is that the Security Council is an independent entity, not reliant on any one signer.
Yeah.
Is pushing notifications, and then the end goal is basically that notifications are pushed by the Security Council Foundation, but also by the entity's own monitoring system, so that it has a fallback.
And to expand even a little more on this too, like the current members of the Security Council, again, are very talented security organizations that most of them are already to some extent monitoring ZKsync era and the ZKsync chains in general, just for their own sake, because their security organization. They want to know what's happening. They want to be the first to respond. They want to be the first to deal with this stuff. So even without the specific tooling we're implementing, it isn't just on us as be the only ones looking. There's a very good chance that Open Zeppelin, Spearbits, these other guys will also notice the stuff even if we didn't put it in place. But again, since we have the work already done, since we have stuff we're happy with, we want to share this with everyone. We want to start at a higher baseline.
Yeah, I get what Christoph is saying, that basically it needs to be really clear which entities have kind of committed to ticking the box of like setting up their own monitoring, so that if anything happens, we can say, yeah, well, you either did have something in place or you didn't. And I totally appreciate that and have taken that on board. Cool.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Alicia, Zach, and Sam for joining and running over the very first protocol upgrade proposals that we are putting through the ZKsync governance system. Maybe in the future, I know usually maybe in the future we can think about just doing a whole call dedicated to this, because I'm sure we could talk a lot more about these proposals as well. But thank you guys for joining, and thanks for everyone for the questions. We have about 1 minute left in the call, which I will try to carefully use to run over just very quickly what the protocol upgrade proposal process looks like, because as I mentioned, it's slightly different from the TPP and GAP process, and also slightly different just in general to other protocol upgrade processes. So I will just quickly find my screen to share. So just before we dive into the process itself, I just wanted to quickly remind folks of the kind of this image, which I'm sure everybody has seen hopefully at least once before. So with the these are the three different proposal types. You see how each of the entities interact with all three of these proposal types. And the thing to call out here is, of course, the Security Council needing to approve any zips or protocol upgrade proposals that are approved by the token assembly. So that's just an important overview piece before we go to running over the zips. So I first, this process is outlined in a lot of detail in the docs under Schedule 1 Standard Governance Procedures, the Protocol Governor Proposal Process. I recommend, if you still have questions after this as well, to take a look at this description. But there's also a nice little visual of this process as well, also in the docs under the proposal guidelines for the zips. So as you see here on the screen, this is the general process for protocol upgrade proposals. So right now, the two that we have open, we have one. So zip number 1 is in the voting period phase, and zip number 2 is currently still in the voting delay phase. Once these proposals move through governance, let's assume that they are approved by the token assembly. Quorum is met. People voted majority in favor. The proposals actually are executed on ERA and go into a time lock. This time lock, it's a 3-day time lock, is a off-chain veto phase for the guardians. So this is a time for the guardians to signal to the Security Council if they think the proposal should be approved by the Security Council or not. If the guardians do veto in this time frame, the proposal will not move forward to the Security Council. If they do not veto in this 3-day time lock period, it will move on to the formal risk review phase. As you can see here, this or also in the description in the docs, this phase can be up to 30 days. But within these 30 days, the Security Council has to approve with 6 out of 12 quorum in order for a protocol upgrade to officially be approved and executed. There's also a stipulation here, if the Security Council does not want to approve, guardians are also able to approve. But are also able to approve, but they also have to then wait the full 30-day period. Once, if the Security Council or guardians approve, this goes into then the proposal then moves into the final time lock phase and then is executed on chain after the 24-hour time lock at that final time lock period. So again, it's just wanted to quickly go over this and highlight where you can find more information on this in the docs, just because it is a little different, and I'm sure there will be questions about it as we move forward here. So yeah, that's all I had. I just wanted to quickly highlight it. I don't know if there's any questions, immediate questions here, or things that need to be clarified. Great. Okay. We're already over, so I do apologize to Tecker. We didn't get to your point on discussing delegate incentives and rewards. I've seen this one actually come up a few times though, so I'm wondering if it might be easier to start like a thread or some sort of work stream on the forum about this, and then once there's kind of a clear group of people who are interested, we could try to schedule a call to discuss it, maybe specifically, just to give it, if there's enough people who want to discuss it, just to give it the time and space. But yeah, there were some other big topics to be discussed on this call today. So thank you everyone for joining and for your questions, and for everybody who presented. As always, we will download this recording and try to get it posted by tomorrow or the following day, including any relevant notes and links, of course, as well. And then the next call will be in 2 weeks. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.